What's going on, guys? This is DaWoblefet, and welcome to Winners Semifinals. This is Winners Round 3, and if I win this, the last game that I have to play in order to qualify for Players' Cup 4. If I lose this game, I will have to play one additional round in losers, and if I win that, then I would also qualify, but I really want to win here. This is also where the part where my preparations kind of ended. I don't have any details on my opponent's team. I don't really know what they've been using. I scouted really, really hard against Arcel, against James Evans, and against Mars, but I didn't really have any idea what ShiveringSea was using outside of the 6 Pokemon. When I saw the open team sheet, I learned just about as much information as probably anyone else would when they saw their open team sheet. I didn't really know that much more in advance. My opponent is running something similar to what I played against in round 8 of Swiss. They're using Haze Dusclops. Sad for Registeel, because I really want my Registeel to be able to set up iron defenses in order to better take on the Glastrier and Trick Room. So that's going to be annoying. Unlike my round 8 opponent, though, this opponent has a Moongus rather than Togekiss. And guess what Pokemon has Safety Goggles and Taunt on my team? It's Spectrier, so that's really good for me. I also should probably properly introduce my opponent. My opponent is ShiveringSea, Alexander Stubbs, a fine player, getting all the way to this point. I wasn't really very familiar with them outside of this tournament, and so this I didn't really have a read on how they like to play either. They've got a nice bulky team, so I'm just going to assume that they're a generic good player, and I've got to do generic good player things versus them. So my Spectrier looks phenomenal against this matchup. I really want to use my Registeel effectively as well, so I'm thinking here, okay, I'm going to try to go in with my Spectrier, and let's see what I can do about that, see if I can make some good headway. So my opponent leads with Moltres and Regieleki, as I lead with my Spectrier and my own Moltres. And this is really bad. They are no fool. They saw that I have Safety Goggles Taunt, and they did not lead with Dusclops and Moongus. Unfortunately, I mean, if my opponent was a dunce, that would have made it a lot easier for me, but unfortunately my opponent was not born yesterday and sees right through me, leading a lead that will easily check my Spectrier, which lacks Protect. I've got to switch out now. Thankfully, though, because my opponent is likely to go for Electro Web and probably not going to go for an electric type attack into the Moltres to deal a lot of damage to it, he probably wants to just double target this Spectrier and take it out, just remove it from the field. My Moltres is going to be in a great position. I'm expecting to get a weakness policy boost here, and then I'd be able to knock out the Regieleki in return. So, although this is not a good lead for me, I am going to be able to knock out this Regieleki, assuming everything works out like I'm expecting it to. So my opponent does Dynamax their Moltres, which is actually good for me. At least it's not bad for me. Recall that this Moltres is Life Orb, so it does not have the weakness policy of its own. They don't have weakness policy on their team anywhere, but that means that they're going to be doing more damage if they go for like Max Airstream into my Moltres. But the Electro Web does come out to start off things. My Moltres takes it, but not super well. I probably will survive a Max Airstream onto that slot, and I'd be able to knock it out, but I would really prefer if they went for an attack into my Clefairy here. My Clefairy should be able to survive any attack Moltres throws at it. And it definitely will be able to survive this Max Darkness that was aimed at the Spectrier, so that's great for me. I'm very happy to see this. And what I'm not happy to see is that the Moltres is faster than my own Moltres. It's unlikely that's a speed tie. The Moltres is probably timid on this team since it's a Life Orb Moltres, so it can afford to have the additional extra speed because it gains the extra power. But I do get the knockout on Regieleki, which is nice. Still not great for me, though. But my opponent can only have mostly Trick Room Pokemon in the back. They do send in Tapu Fini, which makes sense. At this point, I don't expect them to have... I mean, they could have a Moongus, and they just didn't want to switch it in. But I think you'd want to switch into Moongus if you had it there. You'd go for Max Airstream into the Clefairy and then Spore my Moltres. That wouldn't actually outspeed me to be able to pull that play off, but I wouldn't be able to knock out their Moongus with a Focus Sash. But regardless... I don't really have anything better to max here. I also kind of have to max here. So if my opponent goes for Max Airstream into Clefairy, takes the knockout, The Moonblast follow-up into my Moltres would knock me out if I don't go for the Dynamax. So I have to Dynamax here, especially since they've got a special defense drop on me. That special defense drop before, I was quite happy to see it because it meant that it wasn't a max airstream. They didn't get the speed boost. I could potentially win the speed trades later, but because they're already naturally faster, they're just going to win the speed trades as it is. So not looking great for me. My Clefairy is going to go for Follow Me. I can't afford to take the double target. My opponent is likely going to double target my Moltres with Max Airstream and Moonblast if they're playing optimally. And I don't want to bother singing the Moltres or anything like that. So my opponent does get 2 speed boosts. I will be able to knock out this Tapu Fini. If they go for the Calm Mind, I won't be able to knock it out. But if they go for Moonblast, I will be able to knock it out because they're going to give me a Berserk boost. And so, because the Tapu Fini didn't go for the Calm Mind, I am going to be able to knock out this Tapu Fini. And at this point, you know, it's not the end of the world. I still wish I had my Clefairy. If I did have my Clefairy here, then it'd be awesome. I'd be able to Follow Me and then attack the last Pokemon. Probably Glastrier if I had to guess. Glastrier makes the most sense for me. But if it is Glastrier as the last, that means my Registeel is going to be looking really nice. Registeel in the back here. Now I can go for the Protect on the last turn of their Dynamax and set up an Iron Defense. But then it's Dusclops, and I'm like, oh shoot, that's actually going to be really annoying. I've got to be super careful with what I have remaining. My Moltres will go down to their Moltres. It'll also get down to a Nightshade as well. So I'm in a pickle. I don't think they're going to let my Moltres get off an attack here, though. It's way too risky to hard read a Max Guard here and go for Max Darkness into Registeel, because if you get that wrong, I KO the Dusclops, and then I should probably win. They likely won't be able to KO all my Pokemon fast enough. And actually, they might be able to, since they've got Fire A Wrath. That might be strong enough as a spread move. I decided to go for just the regular Body Press here, rather than going for Iron Defense. One, because my opponent has Haze available to them. So they could also go for Trick Room here pretty reasonably. If they go for Trick Room, then they would be able to Nightshade my my Moltres before I was able to attack. I go for the Body Press here in the Moltres. It does some damage. I need it to do some damage, but that's all I really need it to do. My opponent is going to be out of their Dynamax this turn as well, which is nice. So they're not going to be able to just knock me out straight away. But this isn't good. Because my Moltres is still at -1 special defense, I'm certainly going to die from a Fire A Wrath. There's no way that I survive this attack with 48 HP. I don't think there's any shot at that. I'm debating on whether I want to go for the Body Press into this Moltres. So if the Moltres is in KO, like if it barely survives with Life Orb to where it can like if the Moltres survives with Life Orb, like if they don't go under 50%, then my Body Press would trigger Berserk. And that would let them knock out my Spectrier. At the moment, they don't knock out my Spectrier with anything, so I'm trying to be careful. I go for the Iron Defense just so it's not able to knock me out. They do go for the Air Slash that I could have missed. They really should have gone for the Fiery Wrath. That definitely would have knocked out my Moltres. And it would have done some damage to Registeel as well, potentially flinching me. But this is not good. If they go for Trick Room, it's bad. I also mess up. They were going to be able to... They were putting themselves in KO range of Life Orb there. Or Life Orb put them below Berserk range. So I should have gone for the Body Press into the Moltres. I don't think it would have actually mattered. I'm not sure if Shadow Ball would have picked up the KO afterwards, but it would have been a lot closer. And now I am really kicking myself for not going for the Body Press that turn. Because if I had, then I would have at least had a better shot at winning this game. But really not even that. I mean, I would have had to knock out the Moltres in order to have a shot. Now I really can't win. I've got basically nothing that I can do that would actually win me this game. I decided to hard read. I can't win this game, so what I need to do is I need to knock out this Dusclops. So I need to hope that I can get some critical hits on this Dusclops. I can maybe win against the Moltres as it is with my Registeel, but I can't win against the Dusclops. There's no way that my Registeel is going to be able to beat the Dusclops. So my Spectre does survive, and so now I go for the Shadow Ball into Dusclops, but this has got to do a lot of damage, and Dusclops is a bulky Pokemon. It's probably not going to do enough, and you can see it doesn't even do half, so yeah, not great. My Registeel flinches, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I wasn't going to be knocking out the Dusclops with a heavy slam there. And my opponent is going to be able to take this game with their Moltres. So, not how I expected it to go. I expected this to be a Trick Roomy game, and this was pretty much anything but. At this point, I recall that I'm just thinking at this point. I want to try to think about how I could potentially win. I'm hovering over Protect because I want to use Protect to buy me more time to think. Because I need to think about a way that can cover the Moltres lead, like what they just did in Game 1, while also not just straight up folding to Trick Room in Game 2. And it's kind of hard to be able to do that, honestly. I don't remember at this point if I had calced whether or not this Moltres was modest or timid. If the Moltres is timid, then it would outspeed my Landorus. If it's not timid, then my Landorus would outspeed, and Landorus into Moltres would be very positive. I accidentally time out there, and I don't actually click Protect when I wanted to do that, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm not winning the game. It just would have gotten me 45 more extra seconds to think, which would have been nice for me at the time, but not so nice for you, the viewer, especially not the actual Players Cup stream, because they don't edit anything down. They just kind of go straight into it, so... I have lost this Game 1, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, that's not good. This didn't work out at all. I definitely can't lead that same way. I'm going to have to make some sort of adjustment. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think Landorus is my best adjustment against that kind of lead, but it doesn't work against the Trick Room lead. And, I mean, it is not at all impossible that my opponent leads Trick Room here. Like, they could definitely lead the Trick Room. If they do lead Trick Room, and I've got Landorus, then I basically gotta just flinch them. I really don't have another play. I have to just go for the flinch, which is terrible. I mean, that's not the way you want to play against that kind of matchup. So, I'm not feeling good at all. I feel like I have to switch things up in order to respect what they just did. Like, if I lead Spectre again, and they just do the same thing, I feel like nothing changes. I feel like they're just going to win, and I feel like they're going to win more solidly, too. They made a couple small errors in Game 1, like using the Air Slash instead of Fiery Wrath. I don't think they're going to make those same kinds of errors again. So, I am not feeling so good about this, but I do want to try... the Landorus and Clefairy mode. Worst case scenario that they do lead Trick Room, like I say, I can go for the Rock Slide flinch, and I can try to Sing them. Now, Sing is not especially reliable, not only in the fact that it's 55% accurate, but also my opponent has Tapu Fini to be able to block that whenever they want, and it's a fairly easy switch in Tapu Fini against Clefairy, so my opponent has a lot of options, and I feel like I don't have enough. I'm going to still try the Landorus mode. I remember I was also thinking about Moltres, but Moltres doesn't work against what they had led in Game 1 because I'm going to always be outsped. And so I remember I was thinking about Moltres, but I decided against it to go with Landorus instead. I definitely always bring Registeel here. If I can get Registeel in out of max, then it's really good. Regilucky is also really nice because it allows me to hit the Tapu Fini for very large amounts of damage. And that's really key because I'm not bringing a lot of other stuff that can beat the Tapu Fini. So having something that can beat it is going to be important. But I mean, it's going to be really hard to hit it, you know, etc. Things like that. So I'm not feeling confident going into this game too. I have made an adjustment, but we're just going to have to see. I don't like leading Landorus like that into last year at Trick Room. It can just go so poorly. And lo and behold, there you go. My opponent makes a really solid adjustment and leads with Trick Room. and this is just terrible for me. I do get the Intimidate on the Glastrier. That's really nice. It means that my Clefairy for sure is going to be able to survive any attack from the Glastrier. But yeah, I can't go for the Rock Slide flinch here. If I try to do that, number one, that's stupid, and number two, I would have to sing the Glastrier for that to work, and then I'd still have to flinch a Dusclops. So all in all, this is just not good for me. But there is a small glimmer of hope. I still can switch into my Registeel from the Landorus slot. The Clefairy can't be knocked out in one hit here. And so my Registeel would be able to weather the Trick Room a lot better thanks to the Intimidate on Glastrier, which normally doesn't come up in these sorts of matchups. Normally I would lead like Spectrier into this, and so I wouldn't get the Intimidate down. So the Intimidate here is nice, and I'm definitely clicking Sing. I mean, I don't have anything better to do. If my opponent goes for the Max Steel Spike into Clefairy, so be it. I have to take some risks here because I'm so far down on lead. And if I do hit Sing, it's really nice. I'm going to be able to deny Trick Room, and that will also allow me to set up an Iron Defense with my Registeel. So they're going to be wasting their Dynamax turns. So they're still maxing a -1 Glastrier here, which is overall, like, that's probably about the only semblance of an advantage I have. I do hit the Sing on the Dusclops, and also the Glastrier isn't faster than me. Some Glastrier will run faster than Clefairy just for this kind of situation. My opponent does go for the Max Steel Spike. That's going to give them a defense boost, but my Clefairy will be able to survive this attack easily. I'm also going to be able to survive a follow-up attack with Protect. So I'm going to be able to Protect and go for the Iron Defense, which will give my Registeel enough bulk to be able to survive another attack. If the Dusclops doesn't get a turn 1 Wake Up, then I'm going to be sitting okay. It's not good. It's definitely not good, but I will be okay. Based on where I thought I was going to be at after turn 1, that Sing hit is going to change things pretty drastically. Clefairy doing what Clefairy does best in my run, hitting its Sings. Somebody needs to get me a hit count on all the Sings that I hit. I definitely missed a few, but I definitely hit more Sings than I missed. And I definitely hit a lot of Sings that mattered, because that Sing definitely matters. If my opponent gets Trick Room there, this game is completely different. So I Protect here, and a Iron Defense is very safe. My opponent has little they can do to actually punish this play. If they get Trick Room up, they can just haze away my Intimidate drop and my Iron Defense boost. But yeah. Hopefully they just don't wake up. They do only have since they've only slept 1 turn, it is in my favor that they will not wake up on this turn, and they do continue to remain asleep. So that's great for me. Now I can go for the Sing into Glastrier. If I hit that, that'd be even more perfect. I'm not gonna go for the Follow Me. I don't need to bother predicting anything. My opponent can't max guard. If they switch out their Glastrier, or they switch out their Dusclops into Tapu Fini, that's not even that bad for me because that denies them Trick Room. Like, the whole point of this is to try to deny them Trick Room. I'm doing a horrible job at it, by the way, because this Dusclops is eventually going to wake up, and they're eventually going to get Trick Room anyway, so this really isn't that good for me. A Body Press into Glastrier also doesn't do that much damage because they're at +2 defense, so yeah. I do hit the Sing on the Glastrier, though, which is good. So I've hit 2 Sings now, forcing the Glastrier to take its first turn of sleep, and its final turn of Dynamax, and the Dusclops sleeps for the full 3 turns. So you can't ask for more from a Clefairy, right? All right, like apparently I thought that I had a bad lead with Clefairy Lando into Glastrier Dusclops, but nope, I actually had the best lead ever apparently. So yeah, this is fantastic for me. I now want to switch out my Clefairy. I want to keep it alive for later. It's done such a good job. I can still use it later in Trick Room as a redirection bot. It could be handy to have that around. So I go ahead and switch back into my Landorus. I think it's pretty unlikely my opponent goes for the Icicle Crash into that slot. They probably want to go for Heavy Slam since I've stayed out on the field for a million turns with it. The Glastrier could wake up this turn. I go for Body Press just to get a little bit more damage on it. And, and I crit the Glastrier. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I've kind of been tiptoeing around it, but I've been hacking the crap out of this guy. This guy. Oh my gosh. If I were my opponent right now, I would be livid. if I were doing this to me. So, yeah. Well, at least I'm still in the game. You know what? I'm never one to apologize for hacks. I will laugh if I get lucky. Because get mished, kiddo. That's good for me. And my opponent sends out Amoonguss, and I'm like, well, they're just gonna protect their Amoonguss and go for the Trick Room. Guess what move I have that can potentially stop that? I do go for the Heavy Slam into the Amoonguss just to cover that option if they do decide to spore me on the off chance. But since they are Focus Sash, I expect for this not to actually work out. I'm trying to just Rock Slide flinch them, because then if I do Rock Slide flinch them, then I will go for the Dynamax with my Lando, and I will just hit the Amoonguss with like Quake and Heavy Slam. But I don't need to right now, because they're definitely going to protect their Amoonguss and try to set Trick Room. So going for Rock Slide, I'm trying to flinch them. I'm not trying to dance around it. I'm trying to hack my opponent. I don't want them to set Trick Room. The Dusclops takes very low damage from that, thanks to the 2 Max Steel spikes that the Glass Trigger had given it. This Dusclops is going to be absolute pain in the butt to kill. And they do set the Trick Room, so I don't flinch them. Finally, something right goes for my opponent. But it's still not the end of the world. They don't have any offense on the field right now. Their Amoonguss is Sludge Bomb. It's going to take him forever to actually be able to do anything to me. I have to pick a Spore Sack as well. I'm not sure whether or not I should Sleep Sack my Lando. They could Spore my Registeel, but yeah, I remember at this point I was thinking, okay, if they do decide to Spore my Registeel, then I would at least rather go for Fly. If I do go for Fly and I get it off, then the Amoonguss will, like, they would have to protect on the next turn, so it would be annoying for them. They wouldn't be able to Spore me. They do go for the Nightshade into Lander, so I'm like, oh, maybe they did actually mix things up and go for the Spore into into my Registeel. And I noticed my Registeel is actually slower than the Amoonguss. So that's probably indicative that the Amoonguss is probably timid max speed. Given that it has the Focus Sash, it's probably max speed Amoonguss. I don't know that with certainty, but it makes most sense. I don't know why else you'd be that fast on your Amoonguss, because Amoonguss at like base is like 50, and so you really wouldn't run that much speed, especially since you don't have I mean, you do have the Moltres Max Airstream option, but if you're gonna be going in hard on that, maybe they are just max speed. So here I'm gonna protect my Registeel. They're gonna Spore my Registeel. I mean, they could Sludge Bomb my Lando, but I think it's pretty unlikely they're going to do that. They're just going to Nightshade my Lando again. And then maybe next turn they can go for a double target with Sludge Bomb and Nightshade, but they're probably not going to do that on this turn. They're probably going to Spore me on this turn. Thankfully, my Landorus does have enough HP to be able to survive another Nightshade, so I can force their hand on this next turn. And I wake up! I get the 1-turn wake up! So, I guess Sing is better than Clefairy in that respect. So, you can see the animation focusing on Amoonguss there. My opponent knows with certainty that I have targeted their Amoonguss. But this is great. There's only 2 turns of Trick Room left. They really don't have much else that they can do. I'm going to go ahead and go for Heavy Slam with the Dusclops. If they Spore my Registeel, so be it. I will get a knockout on the Amoonguss. My opponent hasn't gone for Haze yet with Dusclops either. I don't expect them to. I don't really have any reason, like, my defense boosts don't really matter at this point. I'm not going to be body pressing anything for more damage than Heavy Slam would do. I would have to use another Iron Defense to power up my body press to be stronger, and then at that point they can just haze me away, so I don't want to bother messing around with that. I'm just going to go for Heavy Slam into Dusclops because it'll do some damage. If the Amoonguss protects it, it'll do no damage, so there's no reason to hit the Amoonguss when Fly would knock it out if that did work out for me. So the Amoonguss does go for the Protect here. Dusclops also goes for Nightshade, but it doesn't in the Lando. I think the reason they did that, you might think, well, that's a stupid play. Why would you ever do that? But I think the reason they did that was just so my Registeel would be at full HP. So that way they could Pain Split it if they needed it to. That makes most sense to me. They just wanted to keep my Registeel healthy in case I hit it for some damage. So now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and sack my Clefairy off. I expect them to double target into my Clefairy. That seems to make the most sense to me here. They're just going to want to knock out my Landorus. They don't technically know how much HP I have, so they might think that Nightshade KOs by itself, but I don't want to mess around with that. I also am not going to max my Lando at this point. It's at too low of HP. I would be able to Dynamax to survive 2 more Nightshades, but I don't really need to do that. At this point, I'm more interested in maxing my Regieleki. By maxing AlexaLacroix, I can set up electric terrain, which will block these spores, and that should help me a lot going forward to potentially come back into this game. So I go ahead and just switch into the Clefairy, fully intending to sack it off. My opponent does go for the Nightshade into the Clefairy, so that's down. I'm hoping this is a Sludge Bomb into the Registeel, then my Registeel will be awake next turn. I'm going to get a Heavy Slam off first, though, which is nice. That's going to put the Amoonguss into KO range of a Max Electric for sure. Unless they protect, then they wouldn't be able to survive the attack. And Spore does go into the Registeel, so my Registeel has not taken any damage. But even though Registeel hasn't taken any damage, it's not doing very much damage to my opponent. But I've got Pokemon out on the field that can do a lot of damage to my opponent. I've weakened their team so much that now I'm in a great spot. I don't want to Max Electric the Dusclops. That's not going to knock it out. At least it probably won't knock it out. So I'd rather just Max Electric the Amoonguss. If I can take a KO there, I would probably win the game because I'd probably have enough bulk with AlexaLacroix to handle whatever they have in the back. They would either have a AlexaLacroix of their own, Moltres, or Tapu Fini. I didn't think it was... I honestly have expected it wasn't Tapu Fini because they never switched it in to block my Sings, but in fairness, they didn't really have like a super good opportunity to do that, so maybe that's why they didn't do that. I'm also at this point thinking a lot about my moves. I'm part thinking, I'm also part timer stalling, because at this point, I think about the only way my opponent can win is with Dusclops Registeel 1v1. And I'm in super high advantage right here. So by going for the Max Electric into the, by taking all my time, I am increasing the odds that my Registeel will be able to beat the Dusclops in a 1v1. All I need to do is put some damage on it. Preferably just have more Pokemon than they do. I try to go for a Protect there. I can't wake up. It doesn't really matter where I click. The Max Electric into the Amoonguss there. Won't knock it out, but I do set the Electric Terrain. That's really what I was aiming for there. And Dusclops is going to set Trick Room. With Dusclops setting Trick Room here, that means the Amoonguss is, once again, faster than my Pokemon. My Registeel could wake up on this turn. I could get a knockout onto the Amoonguss. Now I'm inclined to go for the Max Electric into Dusclops. With the Electric Terrain up, it is pretty likely that I'm going to be able to knock it out. I think if they go for Pain Split, then they would be able... I'm not sure if they'd be able to even survive it full, because I'm a modest Magnet Alecki in terrain here. I think this is going to do a ton of damage, so I just go for this Heavy Slam play. I decide to double target the Dusclops as well, just in case it does. It wouldn't do enough damage. I wasn't sure how bulky the Dusclops was. Want to just put as much damage as I could on it. I do wake up. I did not target into the Amoonguss, so I hit the Dusclops for like 3 damage. But I wanted to make sure that this Max Electric was enough to knock it out. I get punished pretty hard by that with a Sludge Bomb Poison. It's nothing compared to hitting, 2 Sings and getting a Max Sing turn, Max Sleep turns on a Sing. But the Poison is kind of annoying on AlexaLacroix. It's going to reduce its health over time. But my Registeel underspinning the Amoonguss is really important at this point, because they're not going to get another Sludge Bomb off. They can protect. The last Pokemon is actually Tapu Fini, and so that's perfect for me. I'm going to be able to go for Max Electric into this Tapu Fini, do a ton of damage to it. If it goes for Calm Mind, I'll still do a ton of damage to it. My Registeel could underspeed it as well. So I'm looking pretty good. With the Registeel having woken up, I'm now looking like I'm definitely in the driver's seat. The Tapu Fini is unlikely to be able to knock out my AlexaLacroix in one hit with Moonblast, so it's probably going to have to protect in order to survive this Max Electric, or go for the Calm Mind. But if it goes for the Calm Mind, it's still going to take 1,000,000 damage, and my Registeel is going to be able to finish it off, so it's looking like a win for me. It was pretty dicey there at the start, but with enough Sings, you can do anything. You can make any matchup work if you hit Sings. So my opponent is probably doing what I was doing there in game 1, and just thinking about what options they have left. Not to win this game, but to adjust for the second game. I go for Heavy Slam, knock out the Amoonguss. They can't do anything about this. The Protect on Tapu Fini will weaken the damage that they take from this Max Electric, but not so much as to win them the game, I think. Max Electric does about half to the Tapu Fini through Protect. There's also going to be limited numbers of Trick Room, or there's going to be a limited number of Trick Room turns left. So I can just go over Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam should probably 3-hit KO after all the leftovers recovery. But Regieleki itself will be able to just Protect. I can switch it out, sack off my Landorus, and then Regieleki can come and protect another turn if I need to. That's not enough turns for Trick Room. How many turns of Trick Room are left? Oh, yes, I did look at that. So 2 turns of Trick Room left. Now I can just protect my Regieleki, go for the Heavy Slam. And my opponent is pretty much out of options. If they hard read this and go for a Calm Mind or a Muddy Water, great for them. I do get this Heavy Slam off into the Tapu Fini, though. That's going to do some damage. Again, after leftovers, it will probably survive. Another one, like if it protects here. I'm going to switch out my Regieleki into Lando and just sack that off. Go for another Heavy Slam. If they fail to knock out my Landorus, Landorus can also just knock out the Tapu Fini with Earthquake. So I've got a lot of options available to me, and my opponent is very low on options. So like I say, now I can switch into my Landorus. If they don't knock out my Landorus, I'll go for Swords Dance. And then I'll just KO them with Earthquake, so I don't have to mess with my opponent potentially getting like a triple Protect or however many Protects they would need to knock out my Regieleki with Poison. So playing this a little bit slow to end this game out. My opponent actually does not protect with their Tapu Fini, so I'm going to get more Heavy Slam damage off into Tapu Fini, and now it's really low. Muddy Water is going to knock out it's going to knock out my Landorus, but it's not going to come anywhere close to knocking him out Registeel. In order for them to win, they have to get enough successive Protects to have my Regieleki faint to poison damage, but then my Registeel will have recovered enough HP from leftovers for Heavy Slam to pick up the remaining damage on this Tapu Fini. They can't recover enough with leftovers, I think, for them to win this game. They can't win the damage trades. How many Protects would they need? I'm actually kind of curious about this. So I'm 164 divided by 8, 20 damage. They would need a triple Protect in order to knock out the Regieleki. And that is pretty low odds of happening. Now, granted, we have seen some pretty low odd things happen in this game alone, but my opponent doesn't even attempt for it, and just lets me have the win. So that was nice of them. And that was a long game. That game felt like that game felt like 2 games. And I still have one more of them to go. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to fight another one. This is nonsense. I'm like, there's got to be a better way of playing against this than stupid Clefairy trying to sing a million times. This is not a reliable way of beating my opponent. There's got to be another way I can do this. And so I was thinking to myself, in both games 1 and 2, my opponent did not lead with their Amoonguss. They did not lead with their Amoonguss. In game 1, they led with an offensive mode. And in game 2, they led with a Trick Room mode. So, in theory, I also have another Pokemon that I can use to adjust. So I thought Landorus was a good adjustment there. But kind of seeing my Regieleki max here made me realize that also is a really good adjustment to their game 1 lead. Because my Regieleki should outspeed Moltres at -1. Unless it is timid Moltres. But I would be able to go for a Max Electric into their Moltres and do heavy damage to them. Potentially just knocking them out straight up. So I really like the idea of going for a Regieleki as a lead. Regieleki as a lead will force the opponent to take a lot of damage early, and then I can follow it up with my Moltres. I was thinking about this, and then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. Why would I be doing my Moltres here? Like, if I plan on doing this Dynamaxing Regieleki thing, then I actually don't want to bring my Moltres. I still was inclined to think about bringing my Moltres, but realistically, I mean, look at their team. They've got Tapu Fini, Regieleki, and Glastrier. Why am I trying to force my Moltres here? I shouldn't be trying that. It's good versus the Dusclops, sure. It's good versus the Amoonguss, sure. But it's not really good versus anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to Spectre up front. Now, this is kind of risky if they do lead with Moltres again. But I think I can adjust with my Regieleki Dynamaxing compared to last time. So if I do bring the Regieleki, then I'm not going to be maxing my Lando, so I've got to have just Registeel and Clefairy in the back because I don't want either of these two other Pokemon if I'm not going to be maxing them. So I'm relying kind of all in here on my Regieleki, but if my opponent leads the same as Game 2, then it's actually really good for me because if they do, I can just straight up max my Regieleki and go for the double target into it with Max Electric and Shadow Ball. And that would be really, really good. And my opponent does lead the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. My Spectre, recall, if this Glastrier is not running max attack, I have pretty good odds of surviving the max ice if it so chooses to aim that attack at Glastrier, or at Spectre. And they won't be able to knock out my Regieleki for sure with a max ground. So this is a really safe double target on the Dusclops. My opponent really doesn't have very many switches to this. They can switch in their Amoonguss, but Amoonguss would even take a lot of damage from this, but every other Pokemon they have will faint. So, this also could potentially give my Spectre a Grimnay boost. Another special attack boost would be very nice here. I'd be able to do even more damage to them. And on subsequent turns, once I've knocked out this Dusclops, assuming I do knock out the Dusclops, like, they could switch out their Dusclops and then switch it back in, and then they still have the pressure of it. But if I get the opportunity to Will-O-Wisp this Glastrier, that would also be fantastic. So, my opponent does switch out their Dusclops turn 1, and they go to their Tapu Fini. I'm like, oh, if only I had used Will-O-Wisp here. If I had, then this game would be over turn 1. But I did go for the Shadow Ball. Still, not a bad turn for me. I'm going to be able to knock out the Tapu Fini straight away. I'm setting Electric Terrain, so I'm basically committing myself to not taxing my opponent with Sing. But this is the Electric Terrain is also very nice for the potential Amoonguss in the back. They're really in a catch-22. They don't have a lot of options to be able to actually punish this, really, if they brought the same things as they brought in Game 2. If they did bring the same Pokemon as they did in Game 2, if they brought Tapu Fini, if they brought their Dusclops, then I can just double target the Dusclops slot again and knock it out. If they brought their Amoonguss, then I can just Will-O-Wisp the Glastrier and reduce its effectiveness very significantly. So I'm still feeling really good here. I get a free knockout on this Tapu Fini, and I set the Electric Terrain. Again, if I had gone for the Will-O-Wisp, it would have been a much more punishing play, but I wasn't trying to risk... I didn't really read the Tapu Fini switching in there. But yeah, I was happy to see the Tapu Fini switch in there because Shadow Ball into Glastrier does low damage, but at least it's some damage. Max Hailstorm comes out, and I'm like, okay, come on, Spectre. Come on, Spectre. This is part of what you're EV'd for. And Spectre takes it with 7 HP, and I'm like, yeah, Spectre. And that's really good because thanks to the safety goggles, I won't faint to this hail damage. It was actually funny. The commentators forgot about the safety goggles. They're like, oh, it's just going to faint, but yeah, it didn't. That's the... That's a classic commentator special forgetting about items. But yeah, no shots at them, by the way. I forget about that kind of stuff all the time, too. So, now I have a free Will-O-Wisp into this Glastrier, and I can go for Max Lightning. I can go for it either into Glastrier, or I can go for it into Amoonguss. I decide to go after the Glastrier. Putting a lot of damage on the Glastrier will ensure that, like later on, my Registeel's Body Press will do a lot more damage to it. And also, if I miss my Will-O-Wisp, I want to put some damage on it. And I also force them, if they don't want to take damage on their Glastrier, they have to Rage Powder. So I felt like this is a win-win for me overall. I'm putting damage on the Glastrier. It's not like a ton of damage, but I mean, again, it is modest, Magnet, Aleki. I mean, this is going to do non-trivial amounts of damage. It actually doesn't even bring it under half, so I kind of wish I had attacked the Amoonguss in hindsight, but I hit the Will-O-Wisp, and that's the important part. Sludge Bomb is going to be able to knock out my Spectre, but now, thanks to the burn, I'm going to be able to take this Max Quake super well. This is not going to do very much damage to me at all. My opponent does a little bit over half, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know, that's still a lot of damage, but not the end of the world. But then I realized that was a critical hit. That was a crit. Thankfully, you can't crit through burns. So my Regieleki was able to take that attack very comfortably. I'm definitely going to be able to take another Max Quake on the following turn, unless they get another critical hit. But now I get to go into my Registeel, and this is looking great. I'm going to be able to set up a Iron Defense. There's nothing they can do to stop me from doing that. And I get a nice and free Max Electric. Or Max... Yeah, I remember I went for the Max Guard here. Although my Regieleki will run out of Dynamax on the same turn as the Glastrier, I thought that this was fine because I denied them getting a special defense boost. So my Regieleki next turn can go for a nice and solid Volt Switch to be able to block that damage out of that attack. Although, honestly, maybe in hindsight, I should have gone for just the straight Max Electric into the Amoonguss and dealt a lot of damage to it. Because the next turn, I could go for another Thunderbolt and knock out the Glastrier, and I would survive this attack. So maybe I was just a little bit too concerned about the Max Quake plus Sludge Bomb potential. But nevertheless, I do block them from getting another special defense boost, so they're only at +1 on both their Amoonguss and their... Oh yeah, because they have a +1 on their Amoonguss, so I'm not very inclined to attack there. So this is pretty good for me. I've got my Regieleki. It's done a lot of damage to my opponent's team. I still have Electric Terrain up. I mean, you can't ask for much more than this. I'm going to go ahead and get a nice big body press off on this Glastrier. And Volt Switch as well. Remember, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to use Volt Switch into the Amoonguss or into the Glastrier. In hindsight, I think it would have made a little bit more sense to go for the Volt Switch into the Glastrier slot. I also remember I was thinking about Heavy Slam here. So we know Volt Switch is definitely not going to be able to knock out the Glastrier with Heavy Slam damage. Remember, Glastrier itself runs Heavy Slam. So Heavy Slam into Glastrier, I think, is like 40 base power. It's like nothing. So I do have to go for the Body Press in order to be able to knock it out. So I'm just going to go for the Volt Switch into Amoonguss. I mean, it is at +1 special defense, but this is going to do a lot of damage. My opponent does switch out into their Dusclops, so I'm like, okay, fair enough. That's okay. But still not the end of the world for me. If I had Volt Switch that slot, I would have done a lot of damage to it, but I'm still going to do some good damage to this Amoonguss. It's not enough for putting in Body Press K range or anything. And then I kind of sit back and I realize, wait a minute. I really can't beat this Dusclops. How am I going to beat this Dusclops? I don't have anything that can actually beat it at this point. I can't put it to sleep with Sing. I just Volt Switched out. If I hadn't Volt Switched out, I would have died to Sludge Bomb. That's likely coming my way. This actually is really bad. I thought I was in a really good spot. Now I realize I'm actually in a terrible spot. How am I going to be able to break? I mean, I burned the Glastrier, sure, but I need to have some way of actually breaking through the rest of my opponent's team, and I don't really have that. I need to basically take KOs on the Dusclops and Timer Saw them to win, because there's almost no way I'm going to be able to win otherwise. So my opponent does go for the Sludge Bomb into the Clefairy, and it does under half. It does not get the poison either, but I use Body Press into the Dusclops, and this actually isn't good. It's surprisingly not good. And then also I realize my Electric Terrain's going to run out soon. My opponent's just going to be able to Spore all my Pokemon. And Dusclops is unkillable right now. They're just going to be able to Nightshade me a ton of times. This isn't good. This is not good. Electric Terrain, I was checking there, it's the last turn. I have to go for Heavy Slam into the Amoonguss. I'm going for Protect here for sure with Clefairy. If they set Trick Room here, then I will happily use Sing. And maybe I'll hit some more Sings. But I need to make sure my Clefairy doesn't faint here. In general, I just need my Pokemon. I need my Pokemon alive. The more Pokemon I have sitting around, the more that I have the opportunity to potentially Timer Stall my opponent to win the game. So I'm taking all my time here. I don't need very much time to actually click my moves. I don't need much thinking time left for probably what these turns are going to be, because I don't have any very big decision-making turns, so I can just safely afford to do these plays. But my opponent protects their Amoonguss, and I'm like, dang, that's a really smart play. Because not only does that waste out my Electric Terrain, I don't put any damage on this with Heavy Slam now. And my opponent caught my Protect, so all in all, a really great turn for them. They don't set Trick Room, I'm like, oh, like, that's even worse for me because the Amoonguss actually outspeeds everything right now. And so it can just go for Spore and everything. And so I've messed up. This is not good. I thought I had this, but it's just slipping away. I don't see how I stopped my opponent just from going for Sing and Nightshade. They don't even have to set Trick Room at this point. In fact, if they do set Trick Room, that would be better for me because then my Registeel would be able to underspeed the Amoonguss. So this is looking pretty terrible. I'm gonna need like basically a double protect on my Clefairy in order to be able to do anything here. I mean, I could also go for Sing and just attempt to do something. I could also follow me away their attack. Like if I follow me away their attack, then at least next turn I'm gonna get a chance to wake up. Yeah, I remember I was thinking this. So if I do follow me here, I will take the guaranteed turn of sleep, or I will be slept, and I will have to take the guaranteed turn of sleep. But at the very least, okay. So like, all right. So I have to take the guaranteed turn of sleep here, right? And they go for Nightshade. Oh wait, no, this is still bad for me. Yeah, this is still bad for me. Because Nightshade here is gonna be able to 2-hit KO Clefairy, and I can't stop this. I don't want to like if I protect my Registeel, and they KO my Clefairy, and then I go Regieleki, they're just going to protect Amoonguss and set Trick Room. And this is just awful. There's just basically no way I can win this game. I have to, like, even if they go for Sludge Bomb and the Clefairy, like, I have to knock out this Amoonguss, and I just don't have the opportunity to right now. They just get the Spore, and they just Nightshade, and there's nothing I can do about that. It's an unpunishable play for them to go for Spore and Nightshade. And that's exactly what it looks like they're going to do. Just Spore, then they Nightshade my Clefairy, and then I'm not going to be able to break the opposing Dusclops fast enough. It's just going to be over. But then my opponent goes for Trick Room, and I'm like, they choked. I'm like, they should not have gone for Trick Room there. And Nightshade would have won the game. Well, it wouldn't have won the game right there, but I definitely think they need to go for the Nightshade play. Now I have a chance to wake up with my Clefairy. And I also have the chance to wake up with my Registeel. Both of them have not taken a turn of sleep. So this is looking a lot more promising for me because I just need one of these Pokemon to wake up. If one of them wakes up, then I can do this. If one of them wakes up, like if Clefairy wakes up, then next turn I can go for the Follow Me, and I would be able to take out Amoonguss, and then I would be able to protect my Dusclops, or protect my Regieleki from the Dusclops attack, go for Body Press into the Amoonguss, and then I would get 2 Thunderbolts off into the Dusclops. My Clefairy does wake up, I'm like, yes! Okay, so now I'm going to be able to survive this attack. My opponent goes for Nightshade into the Registeel, and I'm like, perfect. Oh, and then I wake up with my Registeel tail, I'm like, yes! And so I go for the Heavy Slam into the Amoonguss. I'm like, that is the best case scenario. Like I could not have hoped for anything better there. Both my Pokemon waking up is super critical. I really just need one of them to wake up. If one of them wakes up, then I'm in a great spot. But both of them waking up means that I'm in a super, super, super great spot. So my opponent switches into their Glastrier. And as long as they don't flinch me with Icicle Crash, I'm looking pretty good. I want to go for the Body Press into Glastrier, follow me with my Clefairy. They're going to knock out my Clefairy and then go for an attack into my Registeel. If I don't flinch, then I will be able to protect my Regieleki, and they're running low on Trick Room turns. I'm going to have this turn here, and then I think there's, 2 more after that? So I'm looking really, really, really good. I'm thinking that I've got this game in the bag. Oh yeah, I also go for Sing. Sing is a little bit more optimal here. Because if they Nightshade my Registeel, that's fine. I have a potential chance to Sing them, and if I get a Sing on Dusclops, that's even better for me. I don't care if the Glastrier gets a boost, because I'll just knock it out with Body Press. So this Nightshade is forced to target into Clefairy because of the pressure of Sing, so that's good. I made an optimal play there, even though I didn't actually get off the attack. My opponent does not go for the Icicle Crash, and so now this is looking a lot better for me. If they had gone for the Icicle Crash and flinched me, I still have the opportunity to try for another one. If they get the close combat critical hit, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it would matter in the sense that it would do a lot more damage, and potentially Nightshade would be able to knock out my Registeel, but Registeel, I don't really care if it's able to take a bunch of it. Like, its HP doesn't matter nearly as importantly as my Regieleki's does right now, and it's above 50. That's really all I need it to be. Now I'm going to take all my time here, I don't know exactly how much Thunderbolt is going to be doing to this Dusclops, but it needs to do not enough. I'm going to be able to get a Heavy Slam off. I'm going to do Protect, Heavy Slam, and then Heavy Slam, Thunderbolt, and then another Thunderbolt, Heavy Slam. They would Trick Room, and then I would get possibly another Heavy Slam off before they could actually do anything to me, so I probably win this game at this point, and I'm cautiously optimistic that I have this game at this point, but it's down to the wire. I'm not at all confident in my Pokemon's ability to actually be able to bring this back, so I'm going to take the full timer. I probably should have done a summary screen timeout there, just to guarantee that I take a little bit more time. I still don't see the 3 minutes remaining. We do see we have 2 Trick Room turns left, so I have a very, very free Heavy Slam and Protect with my Regieleki. There's very little that they can do about this play. If they Nightshade my Registeel, so what? It doesn't affect the board state. And they do Nightshade into my Regieleki, which is great. It gives me an extra turn with my Registeel. I'm going to be putting them low, so even if I'm not able to KO them with this combination attack, it's still going to be great here. Kind of wishing I had Sandtomb in this particular situation, but I wouldn't have got here with Sandtomb. Heavy Slam was definitely the play. The Dusclops is locked into doing 50 damage. My Regieleki will survive this attack, thanks to its additional bulk. If I wasn't bulky, then I wouldn't be able to survive this, but I am able to survive this Nightshade. The 7 HP. Heavy Slam is going to do some more damage into the Dusclops, and I'm like, okay, I think Thunderbolt should do enough damage. Like, 2 Thunderbolts plus another Heavy Slam should do it, and Thunderbolt does cleanly enough. I've won this game. I've moved on. I made it to the Global Finals. I'm like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Going into this tournament with the goal of winning 1 game and making it all the way to Global Finals, like, what kind of Cinderella story is that? I don't know. My opponent here, I said good games. I think they were pretty upset because of all the luck that occurred. Can't blame them one bit. But yeah, I've done it. I made it into Global Finals. So now I have 2 additional weeks to prepare. I also get to update my team if I want to. We'll have to see whether or not I do make any changes to my team. If I want to change anything, if I want to bring a completely new team, if I want to just bring the same team, we'll see here very shortly. But Global Finals is coming up now, and it's time to play my heart out and see what I can do. So, thank you for watching. If you've watched all of my Swiss games so far, a very special thanks to you. I hope you've enjoyed the commentary on these. I hope they've been informative and not a waste of your time. Or at the very least, I hope they were entertaining. Let's hope for that at least. So until next time, have a good one.